what I love about running and what I love about the running and particularly the trail running community is how inclusive it is, or at least it can be. And specifically like the shorter distances, that you can be a runner and not ever do an ultra in your life. And that doesn't make you a lesser person or a less. What I do for a living is I like put on trail races for people who may or may not ever run a marathon or an ultra marathon in their lives. And I love that. And I love that people feel good and accomplished when they cross the finish line. Like I love that my kids love it. And I also love that, other people love it. So anyway, that's what if it's possible to tell that story in some form or fashion. I'm not very good at it, but I'd like to do a better job of telling that story that you can be a runner. Honestly, like I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and I think one of the biggest challenges, it's kind of weird. I've spent the last 20 plus years promoting other brands, but I'm not very good at like promoting my own brand, or at least or telling the story of Five Peaks in particular. And I feel like so many people are both intimidated by and or feel like maybe they can't be a trail runner because the vast majority of the coverage of trail running is, or even just images or videos of trail running, are these epic ridge lines and people doing super gnarly stuff. And I wouldn't even say trail running, just running in general. It's like, a new world record is broken like every weekend. And so when that's the coverage, it can be intimidating. Hi, I'm Jacob, and I'm a renegade.
Welcome to another episode of the Renegade Podcast. Each episode we take to the trails to learn a little bit more about our human connection that we have with running and endurance sport. I'm Todd Marentad, and with me is
Uncle Mark. How you doing today, Todd?
I'm doing excellent, Uncle. Folks, if you like the Renegade Podcast, please head on over to our YouTube and click subscribe. If you listen on Apple or Spotify or wherever, comment, like, share. All that interaction, all that love helps push the Renegade further into the AI world of algorithms. And I don't know, I think more people need to hear the Renegade and our amazing guests that we have on.
I think so too. I mean, even if somebody takes a little nugget from each of these conversations that we have to improve your run, to improve your planning, to improve your fueling, it's just that 1% better, right? Moves you forward just a little bit.
On this episode, we have Jacob Puzey, ultra endurance elite athlete, race director of the Five Peaks Run Series in Canada, and just a really cool dude.
2017, he was the top Canadian at the Boston Marathon. I mean, that's something to be proud of too, right?
And I think I read something like he ran like a 221, 222. We'll have to ask him about that.
226, 52.
226. That's fast. That's super fast. And I'm really interested in like his origin story from high school to university to the trails and to some of the records that he's going to share with us on the episode, like the 50K world record on a treadmill. That's pretty tough.
That's right. And then not to mention also he's participated in ultras like the Grizzly Ultra. So how much of a toughie do you have to be to run something called the Grizzly? I think, it's meant for a certain kind of person. So not me.
We're happy that you're listening to this episode. We're going to dive in. He's a coach. He's a race director. He's going to give us the secrets to help you become a better trail runner and really make the case, I'm going to say, why you should take to the trails. Whether you're out or running a Five Peaks race or two, there's always a Hyena IPA brew for you.
What I love about running and what I love about the running and particularly the trail running community is how inclusive it is, or at least it can be. And specifically like the shorter distances, that you can be a runner and not ever do an ultra in your life. And that doesn't make you a lesser person or a lesser runner, and that kind of thing. And yet, so that's like my bread and butter. That's what I do for a living, is I like put on trail races for people who may or may not ever run a marathon or an ultra marathon in their lives. And and I love that. And I love that people feel good and accomplished when they cross the finish line. Like I love that my kids love it. And I also love that, other people love it. So anyway, that's what if it's possible to tell that story in some form or fashion. I'm not very good at it, but I do think there is, I'd like to do a better job of telling that story, that you can be a runner and you don't ever have to get on a podium. You don't ever have to run a marathon, and you can still be a runner or a trail runner.
Yeah. Well,
With
I love how you said it though there too, like very organic, just very appealing to the broader audience, just bringing it's all encompassing, bringing people in that may not be, that elite athlete that is, tearing up regular marathons on a, regular basis. It's that person that maybe wants to reconnect with nature and just get out there and have a fun run sometimes. And just I know Todd has talked a lot about when he's been out on a lot of these trail runs and all the different places that he's traveled to already. And that's just the imagery of how he describes it is just wonderful.
Maybe just keep pulling on that thread. Jacob, that's kind of like a great introductory question, because, Jacob, I came across yourself from Five Peaks Race Series. It must have been around maybe 2021. And you were was advertising on Facebook, and I'm like from Southern Ontario. And I'm like, wait a second, there's trail running in Ontario. And where we live, it's pretty flat. I got a trail by my house that's in a bush. So we signed up and we went up to Crawford Lake and we went to a Five Peaks race. And what I loved about the Five Peaks race series right away was there was multiple distance to choose from. So it might be a little bit nervous of my first legitimate trail race, that I could pick a distance I chose. And I went out there at Crawford Lake and had a great time. And I think I forget the enduro distance or something like that. Maybe it was like 20 kilometers. And I probably came in dead last because I don't know how these trail runners were running so fast. But maybe the origin story of the Five Peaks Trail Series, like how did a runner from the Pacific Northwest and the Southwest of America decide to get into race directing a trail series in Canada?
That's a really good question. So I had actually directed events in the US before moving to Canada. I'm the oldest of four boys, and there are six kids in my family, and so I've kind of been in event from the time I was a very young kid. So we literally used to set up steeplechase courses in our backyard and do laps around the house with sprinklers and just obstacle courses and stuff like that. So it was more what can I do to dare my younger siblings to do, and I'll be the race director for that. So I've been doing it my whole life, and it was honestly when I moved to Canada. It took over 2 years to get my permanent residency and to be able to work, and so even my education and my credentials and things like that didn't necessarily transfer. So it's I had to find something that I could do remotely for a while until I had a work permit. And so I coached online for a while, and then and I got involved with kind of the back end, didn't get paid, but just tried to help as much as I could with events, which I had done. I had created races. I'd been a volunteer. I'd been a race director from anything from a track meet to high school cross country meets to marathons and ultras and stuff like that. And so I feel like I had a lot of experience, mostly voluntary or nonprofit type stuff. But then when I got up here, I saw in a lot of ways the unique opportunities that exist in Canada, both because there is so much green space and public land dedicated to movement and access to nature in or near major metropolitan areas. And but also, to be clear, I didn't found Five Peaks. I purchased Five Peaks from there were two previous owners before me, and so I kind of took it over or bought it right before the world shut down. So not the best time to like go all in on something.
That's a tough time to buy a business there. Absolutely, Jacob.
Especially an event or a business that requires gathering. So I was like, all right, I'm going to take my life savings and then I'm going to take out a huge loan and I'm just going to like go all in, and then the world's going to shut down. So I learned how to convert things to virtual. And I mean, fortunately, I'd been working online for like the previous decade anyway, and so I had some sense of what was out there, and so I felt like we were in a decent position to pivot. But yeah, I mean, I love the collective energy that we feel when we do gather, whether it's like this, like just have a conversation, or for a group trail run, or at races. And ironically, like I'm like one of the most introverted guys on the planet. Like I can literally go like weeks without interacting with like another adult in person, in part because of where I live and in part because so much what I do is online. But at the same time, like I feel rejuvenated every time I do have a face-to-face human interaction with people. And so, and I guess even more importantly, like I felt that during the pandemic, like so many of us, but like that, like Five Peaks, like every other event company was going to go under, and it was just like, no, we can't let this go. And I honestly thought I would just get it set up, and then I would have my regional race directors, and I would just be like the Wizard of, or not the Wizard, yeah, the Wizard, like the guy behind the curtain. Like I wouldn't be the face. I wouldn't like have anything to do with like the actual race day stuff. I would just do everything behind the scenes and then have other people be the face, more extroverted people be the face. And then my kids started doing like the virtual races during the pandemic and pinning on those bibs. And like, I live 3 hours from the closest 5 Peaks race, and we're going to drive 6 hours to Edmonton this weekend because my 7-year-old boy wants to run a 3K and the 1K and he wants to run all the races. And he's like, Dad, can we go? And it's like, yeah, it's probably less expensive to drive all the stuff than to ship it. So sure, like, let's just load the garage up, throw it all in the back of the truck, and let's drive 12 hours so you can run 3K. And and so the fact that like my kids love Five Peaks as much as I love Five Peaks, and that they, like, I try really hard not to be that, like, I'm going to perpetuate a stereotype, but like that hockey parent or that dance parent or whatever, that's just like, we're going to go everywhere for like our young kid and we're going to do everything. I find that maybe a little overindulgent just because my parents were pretty free range with me. And so I really haven't tried to push running on my kids. I've tried very hard to not push running on my kids. And the fact that they're like, we don't want to just hang out. We don't want to sleep in and then watch Saturday morning cartoons. Like, we want to be at the race. We want to be the ones bringing the coffee to the volunteers, and we want to be unloading the truck. We want to say hi to everyone. Like, my son loves high-fiving every single finisher when they come through. And like, if I weren't the owner, the one paying for the liability insurance, it would probably be a very major liability to have my son in the finish chute. Like, I just love that. Like, it really is something that my kids like beg to be a part of, and that not only that, like they feel like they're a part of something. Like they're proud of it, but they also like play an active part, and they see like just how happy it makes everyone feel. So it's like, I don't know, every parent, does the best that they can to try and, teach their kids to work hard and to be decent humans. And I feel like I don't even have to try that hard. It's like, it's already built in, because the running community is like just mentoring my kids and like surrounding them with love and support and welcoming them just like they do everyone else. Like, my kids aren't treated any differently because I'm their dad, but it's like it took me till I was a teenager to find running, and it was a godsend. And so like the fact that my kids like are born and raised in this is just like, it's amazing. And I love that like pretty much anyone who comes to any of the events feels the same way, like that they don't have to be like personally connected to it. They immediately feel a personal connection to it, because the community is just so extraordinary.
The Runegade is proud to be sponsored by Thrive Protein. Power your runs and fuel your endurance with Thrive Protein, the premier Canadian-made supplement brand crafted for endurance athletes. This family-owned brand uses a science-based approach to develop high-quality electrolytes, a carbon electrolyte powder, creatine, vegan protein powders, whey protein, and super greens. And they are constantly innovating. Recently brought to market EnduraFuel, hydration and fuel all in one. Each serving offers 30 grams of carbs and a 2-to-1 ratio of glucose to fructose. You also get all the elements that you're sweating out during your efforts. It gives your body the energy it needs to perform at its peak. Plus, the lemonade flavor tastes amazing. Thrive is perfect for any athlete chasing any distance. Visit thriveprotein.ca and use the code RUNEGADE for 20% off your order. Thrive Protein. Fuel your relentless pursuit of adventure.
That's amazing. And I think you don't have to worry about, feeling like you're pushing anything on your kids, because it sounds like running is in your DNA, with your family, with your siblings, with even just how you described earlier, how at an early age you were setting up races, around the yard or property, and, being a race director back in the day. So you mentioned there that when you're 14 or in your teens is when you really discovered running. What was it about it? Like, do you remember that moment that you're just like, I'm free? Was it the freedom? Was it the speed? Was it that you realized you were really good at it at that point in time? Like, what was that tipping point for you to be like, hey, this is the trajectory of my life right now? And how did that carry you through to, now, basically?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I wasn't good at it, like, at all, and I honestly think that's why I liked it. Like, I loved basketball. That was my first love, and but I was super short, and then eventually my feet started growing, so it was even more awkward. I literally had a size 13 foot when I was 13 years old, and I was like 4'11". So if you can imagine, like, I looked like an L. Like my feet were gigantic, and I was this, 85-pound kid with size 13 shoes, and I would trip on my own feet running down the basketball court, and wish that someone would call a foul just so I didn't look like such a fool. Like, I would fit into with the amount of flopping that is happening in the NBA right now, like, I would fit right in because people are just like falling all over the court. Like, that was me as a middle school kid trying to play basketball.
And you
But
think like swimming would have been a good natural progression then with those
exactly.
feet, right?
And I am a terrible swimmer. Like, it's so bad. Like, I don't think I'll ever drown, but like, I am not a good swimmer at all. Like, I will never, nothing graceful whatsoever. And I love swimming. I'm a terrible swimmer. So, I honestly think that it was in part because I wasn't good, but I was also scrappy because I grew up playing basketball and was just like, probably had this little man syndrome, like trying to prove something. And, yeah, I would just like start races and sprint, die, walk, sprint, die, walk, like catch my breath, sprint again, just walk, and not. But that wasn't the strategy. That was just like how bad I was at pacing. That was just, but also like how intense I was. It was just like no one was going to try and teach me how to run. Like, I was just going to stick my nose
Foot
in
on
it.
the gas, foot off the gas. It sounds
Exactly.
like.
Yeah. So I wasn't like trying to follow the Jeff Galloway method. I was just dumb. And so that was pretty much middle school track and cross country. And I was really only doing those to get in shape for basketball, and because I wasn't good at any of the other ball sports. So like, I wasn't good at soccer. I wasn't good at tennis. Tennis was always after basketball season, and so like I tried, and like Andre Agassi was like a star then, and John McEnroe, and so like I thought that it was okay to trash talk in middle school tennis, and apparently it's not. There's supposed to be this thing called etiquette, and so I wasn't a good tennis player because I trash talked, and yeah, so running just kind of eventually, I think I just did it enough that it started to click, but it took probably like 3 years. Like, even my first year in middle school cross country, like, it took the entire season to start and finish a 3K race without stopping. And like, now my 7-year-old does that, like, and wants to do like all of the races at a 5K race, but like, it took me, I was 13 years old, and like it took me training every single day after school for 3 months to just do a 3K without stopping, and not fast, but just like that was the only goal, was like, I want to do this without stopping. And I think the only reason I achieved that is because my little brother, who was in grade 5, wasn't on the team, just jumped in the race at the start and like tried to beat me. And so it was sort of like, okay, he hasn't even trained and I've been training, and so he just like stuck on my, on my shoulder and then tried to outkick me toward the end. So like the only reason I even achieved my one goal that I had for the whole season, which was to run a 3K without stopping, was because my little brother was right on my shoulder and like in my back pocket. So yeah.
Those little brothers can be motivating factors. That's for sure. Now, and
Yeah.
you mentioned you came from a family of 6.
Yeah.
So were you the first runner, or was your family uh, from running?
Yeah, so neither of my parents like did organized sports at all growing up. My paternal grandfather died when my dad was 12, and so he uh and they didn't grow up in a family. Like they grew up on the my grandpa worked in a slaughterhouse, and that was an upgrade from being a custodian at the school. And yeah, so they were pretty scrappy and from a different part of town where like cross country wasn't what the kids in my dad's neighborhood did growing up. And so he had to get a job and provide for himself. And yeah, he mostly got in trouble and drove fast cars, is from my understanding of what he did as a teenager. But he didn't do any organized sports. And my mom didn't either. I think she may have like run track like 1 year in middle school or something like that. But oddly enough, even though I grew up in rural America where like sport is king, my parents, like, I was actually really annoyed that my parents didn't care more. Like, it was like, I don't think I've ever played catch with my dad. Never sat down and watched a football game with my dad, or a hockey match, or a basketball game, or any of that. My parents could care less about sports. Like, the only reason they cared about sports was because we cared about sports. But even like in university, or even like I was running the US Marathon Championships once, and my dad was going to be in the same area, and I was like, "Hey, do you want to come watch?" And he was like, "I guess, yeah, if you want me to." Like, but and that's
I'm
not
good.
like a not. It's just like he just didn't grow up with that. And and ironically, like, I honestly think it was the best thing that could happen to me and my siblings. Like, 3 of the 6 of us got scholarships like to play sports in university. And I think it's because they taught us to work, they taught us to be self-sufficient, they taught us like not to make excuses. And if anything, they like tried to, like, even if I would make a club basketball team, or if I'd qualify for a race, like, my parents were pretty religious, I was never allowed to practice or do sports on Sunday, like, at all. And like, no questions, like, that was not an option. So it was like we'd go to a basketball tournament, I'd play Friday, Saturday, driving home Sunday, or finding a place to go to church on Sunday. Like, it was, and so if anything, my parents like really tried to ingrain like balance, and that, like, that youth sports aren't the end of the be all, that they're just a creation. And so it's actually been, when I reflect, and also when I read the literature, and when I've tried to be a coach and stuff like that, I really appreciate like how that it was almost the opposite of what you see in like the current North American sport culture with youth sports. Like, my parents did not shove it down my throat. If anything, like, I had to beg them to let me play basketball. I had to beg them to let me run. I had to buy my own running shoes. I had to buy my own basketball shoes. Like, it wasn't like, hey, we're going to sign you up for this, and this, because all of our friends' kids are doing this. It was like, nah, yeah, you're going to get a job, and you're going to, help out around the house, and you're going to have chores and take care of your siblings. And
Well,
yeah.
definitely, that's definitely probably I'd say part of the secret sauce of where your background came from, and where your running took you, because you touched on it. Nowadays, if your kid shows the slightest interest in something, next thing you know, you got them in after school, hyper focused on it, 7 days a week, they're training, and they're not having fun anymore. And we grew up in small town Canada. I just remember playing barnyard baseball all the time. My dream was to hit a home run over the the milk shed house of roof, but I could never do it because I was like you with not size 13 feet, but I was really short. But nothing was, it was all play. And I don't know, I'm with you, like Jacob, it's maybe there's too much organized sports nowadays and less play. And it sounds like there was less play for you, but you had the organized sports, but your parents were just
I mean,
no pressure.
I had like a paper out after school. I was like put in charge of my siblings and stuff like that, but like we lived on our bikes and we kind of could go anywhere. Like there were very few parameters in terms of like, someone asked me the other day, like, what was the most unhinged thing your parents did, you know? And I was like, and I didn't ever wear a helmet until I got a ticket for not wearing a helmet while delivering papers at like 7 a.m. when I was a teenager. And that was because it had just become a law. But like one of my best friends, his name was Jesus. He got a go-kart, but it was like someone, like I think his brother made a go-kart out of like a lawnmower engine and put the frame together, and the throttle broke. And so we didn't have money for a throttle. So like, it was just like, all right, I'm going to hop on the back and I'll pull the throttle. And I'm just basically going to just like put my arm around your neck and you steer and I'll pull the gas with my finger. And I was my son's age doing that. And we were going really fast, no helmets, like down the street, in the alleys, like, and that was just being a kid. Like that was just normal life. Like, and so, yeah, I try to provide that for my kids. Like we live in a beautiful place. We're like a 5-minute walk from this beautiful creek and there's waterfalls and stuff like that. And so like, I don't just say kids get out the door, but it's like they walk through the door, and unless one of their friends beats them to the house and is like, hey, can so-and-so play? And they're just off with their bikes. It's like, we're taking the dog out for a walk. She needs to, you know, get in some water and run around and stuff like that. But it's in part because I want to get them, like if their default is, okay, we're going to put our backpacks down, we're going to just sit in front of a screen until dinner time or whatever, that's what they'll do. But if it's like, hey, you know, glad to see you, let's go for a walk. Sometimes those walks will take like 3 hours. They're usually only about an hour, but like sometimes it's like, and it's not because I'm like, hey, we need to like experience more nature. It's like they're begging to, they're like, can we just stay? Can we build a campfire? Can we sleep here tonight? And like, and so it's, I don't know. I love that that's like, they get to have that as kids. And I don't see that often enough. And I think maybe I'm that way because I taught for about a decade. I taught middle and high school for a while. I coached, and I just saw that. I mean, for me personally, I couldn't stand to be indoors that long, but for my own kids, it's like, you know, they hop on a bus at 8 a.m. They don't get home till 4, and then and so they're just basically like in a cage like all day long. And I'm ready to get outside too. So I want them to have that reprieve that running provided me, I guess, like both from the time I was a kid, not organized running, but like essentially living on my bike or skateboard, and then eventually finding running and starting to do that more as a middle schooler and high schooler.
Well, I've got to ask because you've described, again, your surroundings around your home and just being out in nature. So, what then turned you in the direction of getting the 50-mile world record on the treadmill in 2016? Did you put the treadmill outside? I mean, did you have like imagery around you just to keep yourself, you know, focused on what is beyond the walls? Describe like how did this come about?
How did this idea come into Jacob's brain? I'm with you too. Like the treadmill is already horrendous, but going for the world record on a treadmill like this, like what were you thinking? That's what we want to know.
Okay, this is probably going to be a long answer, but if you haven't noticed, I can kind of go on and on for days. So first of all, where I grew up running, wasn't like, even trail running was essentially running along a canal, like on a dirt road. Like that to me was trail running, and there wasn't a mountain in sight. Like if I were to see nature, it was probably a rattlesnake or a bull snake or a badger or a skunk or something like that. It wasn't like anything exotic, and lots of tumbleweeds. So running to me hasn't always been just like this sensory experience, like at least where my eyes are just like bugging out of my head. It's always, and I guess I've learned as I transitioned from track to even cross country, and then cross country to the roads, and then the roads to the trails, I felt like I always did better on courses that would allow me to get into a rhythm. Like I've run some races, trail races even, that just they they may not have had a lot of like steep ascents or descents, but the ones that are like, you know, the paper cut type just like never allow you to get into a rhythm. I've never done well at those things. Whereas if there were courses that were just kind of undulating and where I could roll, like I'm a pretty big guy for like now I am, like I finally grew into my feet. And so like I'm only 185 now. I'm 6 foot tall. Like that's pretty big for like, I basically have the body that I wish I had in high school. But it's a lot to carry around, you know, like when you're running an ultra or a marathon and you're running against guys that weigh like 105 pounds or 120 pounds. But I felt like if I could get into a rhythm, it was almost like this mass worked to my advantage, especially if it was like a slight decline or whatever. Yeah, so I've always known that I was a decent rhythm runner. The more I learned about physiology in general and my own personal physiology, the more I realized like, okay, I have a really high VO2 max, but a really low lactate threshold. But if I can like redline, but I can redline longer than most. And so if I can just like stay right below where I blow up, I can go all day. And so as long as I'm fueling and as long as I don't cross that line, I'm golden. And so yeah, I'm not ever going to break 2 hours in the marathon, but I also knew that like when I ran even my PRs in the marathon, I felt like I could just keep going. I just didn't feel like I had another gear in me. And so there was that. I'd also run close to the previous treadmill world record on trails, carrying a pack and stuff like that. And so I was like, it's only like 10 or 12 minutes or something like that. And if I'm not wearing big clunky trail shoes and like having to carry a pack and stuff like that, if I can just like, and not have to deal with, you know, softer trails or pine cones or roots or rocks, or even, you know, I think there was maybe like 5,000 feet of gain. So, you know, a little over 1,000 meters. If I could do that, if I could just eliminate all of those other variables and just be like, here's your aid station, everything you need, don't need to worry about anything else. I just felt like I could probably do it. And I never really had the intention of like running as fast as I did. I actually just I tried to set in the pace on the treadmill, and again, clunky, uncoordinated me just kept like hitting my knees up against the front of that pace. And so I just kept like speeding up until I was far enough away from the front that it was like, okay, I can actually stride out. And so like, I think the world marathon or the world record pace was like, I think maybe just under 7-minute pace per mile. And that's just how the treadmill was calibrated and was measuring. And so I eventually got down to like running, like averaging about 6-minute pace toward the end. And that's just what felt comfortable. And for some reason, anytime I've run on a treadmill, that's like the comfortable, like the efficient pace for me when I run on the treadmill. And yeah. And at the same time, like, I think I had run on a treadmill once before I was in college, and I only did it. I was on a business trip with my dad. He occasionally has to do stuff in Washington D.C., and so like he took all of us kids at least once, you know, during that time when he had to go back for these meetings, and it was so that we could have, you know, this out of small town experience, and so we could see the art and the history and stuff. And the very first day that we were there, there was a shooting in a theater in Union Station, and so like I'm like from the middle of nowhere, and I mean I'd seen guns, but that people used to hunt with, not to shoot each other with, and so like they shut Union Station down, and it just got flooded with police officers, and then we were walking by the theater as they were pulling the guy out that had just been shot, and he was my age, and it just kind of like put things in perspective for me. But I was also in high school, and it was during track season, so I was like, no, I'm not gonna lose the training that I did. I'm gonna run in the on the treadmill in the hotel. And again, this is what a hick I am. Like I was trying to run in like board shorts and no shirt. I'd never been in a gym, in a hotel in a big city. And they asked me to put my shirt back on. I was like, I never wear a shirt when I run. Like, what are you talking about? And so I actually left the gym and went outside into the same neighborhood where we were, where the shooting had happened. And I was like, so to me, it's kind of wild. Like I run by bears. I run by, cougars. I ran by rattlesnakes, like none of that ever scares me. That was like probably the bravest thing I felt like I'd ever done, is that like I faced my fears after seeing or witnessing that shooting or the aftermath, and just like, you know what? I'm not going to let anyone take running away from me. I'm going to go out into the same neighborhood and I'm going to go run around the mall in DC. And so it was almost like an act of resistance. Like I don't want to ever feel again for a long time. And then I started living in really cold places that sort of necessitated a treadmill again. So that was the impetus, I guess, was I need a treadmill. And I'd had bad treadmills that I'd either broken at gyms or that I had, or that had broken on me at gyms, or that I had myself. And so I was like, okay, I actually want a durable treadmill that isn't going to require me to be, some sort of electrical engineer to fix all the time. And so, or mechanical engineer, whatever. Yeah. So I pitched it to some treadmill companies, and one of them agreed that they would send me a treadmill if I would go try and do it at the running event. So that's how that came together.
Hey runners, we all hunt that gear sweet spot. Functionality that actually delivers, comfort that never quits, performance that pushes you harder, and pieces that have you looking like the badass you are out there. But the real craving? Gear that straight up disappears. No fiddling, no chafing, just pure flow and the freedom where you can crush your miles. That's where our friends at Path Projects come in clutch. I'm obsessed with their Graves PX running shorts. That independent suspension design is straight wizardry, and pockets that actually work. Their highly rated designs keep on stacking wins. The Pyrenees hoodie, T19 Magic, with the snorkel hood and thumbhole hand protection, perfect for those crisp morning runs or just layering. It runs like a dream and chills like your favorite casual piece. Just pure performance that you forget that you're wearing. Premium everything from an independent crew that gets the runner's life. And as a special thank you, you can use the code TRP10 for 10% off your order for a limited time. Check them out, Path Projects. Whatever your path, enjoy your journey.
Oh, that's wild. That's wild. And I was going to say the gyms see you come and they're like, okay, lock away the treadmills. Here comes Jacob, but he's gonna damage all the treadmills out of service. Yeah. Okay, so then help us, Jacob, and help for the audience. So 50-mile treadmill world record, and then 2016, 2017 Calgary Marathon 50K. You won it outright, and I think you won it 4 times overall, right? The Calgary Marathon 50K event of it.
I think so. Yeah.
Then the top Canadian marathoner in the 2017 Boston Marathon got 2:26. Like these are like elite times, Jacob. So the trajectory, like when did you know that you were a good runner? Like when you talked about your origin story about your first running, your discovery of running, but when did you actually start to discover that you're pretty good at this when you finally grew into your body and your size 13 shoes, maybe?
I thought it was maybe when he was running from the cougars and bears.
Well, that too, that could.
Honestly, like when I actually do get to experience that kind of nature, like I don't run fast at all. I'm just like in absolute awe and just like feel so grateful that like that the fitness that I have, it enables me to like be in such wild places. And yeah, it was a really slow process. Like I think I technically started running competitively, or like trying to compete in organized running in grade 7. Wasn't good. And I mean that, like, I think, by the end of 8th grade, cross country, I was maybe like the 4th or 5th guy on my team. and not a big team. Like, so it wasn't like some big, full school bus. It was like there might have been like 8 of us with like back of the pack kind of thing. And then I ran cross country in grade 9, and I think I was the number 14 guy on the team. And so that meant that I got the very last spot on the junior varsity team to run at the district meet. And I'm pretty sure I got dead last in the district cross country meet of the junior varsity race. I got 40 something, then there were 7 teams. So if you could do the math, seven people times 7 teams, I was close to the back. I don't know if I got absolute dead last, but I was back there. And this was pre-internet, so I don't think we'll actually be able to verify. But and then I had a teammate who I think was right ahead of me, and he was a pretty good wrestler, and I was playing basketball that winter. And he said, "Hey, we were both new to running this year." And that was like the best I was all year. So like I worked my way up to being the very the 14th, the very last guy in the JV. And he was the 13th guy. And he said, let's keep training during the winter. Like, why let this go? And so he would meet me at my house at 5 a.m. And we'd run in the morning before school. We'd eat like our Cap and Crunch in the locker room at high school. Go
Carb
to school.
loading.
Yeah, we certainly were not like taking it seriously, and it was like, oh, I've got to like take this supplement or eat this. It was just like we were typical teenage boys. We'd often eat in the locker room after we'd shower. I lived pretty close to high school, so we'd do that. We'd go to school. He'd wrestle after school. I played basketball after school. Track season rolls around, and all of a sudden, like by the time we're like middle of track season, like I was fighting for like a spot to be one of our top 3 guys in the longest distance event. But it was like there were only a handful of the members of our cross country team that weren't there, and so it was like, what happened to the 10 guys that were ahead of me during the cross country season? And it was just that they didn't run during the winter. And so it was like somehow that momentum of just like not, and that consistency and probably a little bit of puberty, like it kind of caught up. And I was actually like, I won a race like outright, which was just like crazy to me. And it was just like the day before in practice, like it was a long run. It was a 6 month or a 10K run, and it was really hot. And so like everyone was complaining. We were running next to the canal, so everyone was like jumping into the canal and stuff like that. And I was like, no, I'm just gonna redline it every single day. And I beat guys that I didn't ever beat in the fall, and I'd never beaten before. And I beat them the day before, like where they sent like the stragglers, like the nobodies on the team, to this really small meet to see who could make the last spot for the varsity meet. And I beat I beat a lot of guys on the team on that long run, because I took every single run as though it was a race. And then during the race the next day, when those guys tried to pass me and stuff like that, I was like, no way, I beat you yesterday. You're never going to beat me again. And they never did. And it was just crazy. It was like, somehow it was like, you beat those guys once, and you worked more than them during the winter, and they're never going to beat you again. Don't ever let them beat you again. And I never did. And they never even tried again. It was just like, yep, this is different. Jake's better than us now. And, but honestly, I think the biggest shift that occurred was, again, this was like a nobody meet. Nobody cared. It was like all of the very small schools sent their very slow runners to this meet, and I won it in the dark. Like nobody was watching, but somehow they posted the results in the newspaper. And again, like there wasn't an article, there wasn't a picture or anything like that. But my sociology teacher, it might have been my world history teacher at the time, but like my social sciences teacher was there, and he read the results, page 20 of the sports page, just very small newsprint. And he asked me to stand up in class the next day. And I was like, oh shit, man, what did I do? Like, I thought I was in trouble. That was typically what happened when a teacher called my name. I I got good grades, but I was usually in trouble for something. And so I thought he caught me doing something that I wasn't supposed to be doing. And he was like, "What happened last night?" I was like, uh, uh, I didn't know what he was talking about. Like didn't think we were talking about running. And he was like, "Can you tell the class what you did yesterday?" And I was like, um, "I had a track meet." And he's like, "Yeah, tell him how you did." It's like, I I won. And he was just like, "You didn't just win. You actually ran really fast." And he's like, I saw your results from last week, and um, you ran fast. You ran the 1500 last week, and you ran that time times 2 last night in the 3000." And I was just like, "Oh, I hadn't even done the math, but yeah, I guess you're right." And yeah, as a punk teenager who was like very much trying to just gain the respect of his peers, it was shortly after my family had moved from New Mexico to Oregon, and like I wasn't from there, and it's a very small town, so you needed to be from there and have a name that people recognized. And when you have a last name like me, people will recognize it, but not usually because of anything noteworthy, other than it's just fun to make fun of. And so like all of a sudden, like my teacher recognized me for something other than being a delinquent teenager. And 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 honestly, I think that was the turning point for me. Like I went from being in school suspension, and again, I didn't do anything that most teenagers weren't doing. I just was stupid and got caught a lot doing the stuff that teenagers are doing. But all of a sudden it was like, this guy sees good in me and isn't just looking to like find the bad in me. And so I then enrolled in like every single class that guy offered, but at the same time,
That's
like
awesome.
I wanted to be a runner. Like on that day, I was like, I think I found my thing. And yeah, I went from being the 14th guy on the cross country team to being the top guy on the cross country team the very next year. And I think only 3 guys graduated. And yeah,
That's awesome.
I mean,
And
it was still not good relative to other people, like in the league and everything like that. Like I never qualified to run in the Oregon State track meet. I only qualified once to run in the state cross country meet. But like on that day, I like identified like this is a part of me. This is who I want to be. And so then I just got to work and tried to become a runner. Yeah.
And you also, so was it that moment that also determined the trajectory of you going down the teaching path as well, do you think? Because I mean, that's something that stood out in your, it stands out as a moment in time. And you mentioned that you signed up for its other classes and that, but I mean, that moment could have been, a very influential
Someone who
point in
believed
time,
in
right?
you. Someone.
That's
all it takes
right.
a little bit of belief, right?
And
Yeah.
I'm sure you have had students too that you've been able to make feel that way as well. But I wonder if that is that moment in time that really course correct you perhaps or sent you on the trajectory that you're on?
I mean, I think it ultimately is why I ended up where I ended up, I guess. It was not my intended career path. Somehow I went from being, just hanging out with guys who eventually got in pretty serious, like legal trouble. Like I have kids that I was friends with that will be in prison for life. Like, and those were the guys that I played basketball with. And those are the guys that like I was trying to impress. And all of a sudden running found me, and these mentors, these positive male influences found me, and pulled me out of that. And so I really could have gone down a really negative path. And instead I went from being like on a very negative path to all of a sudden eventually almost being like a big fish in a small pond. And so like I I probably had a delusional sense of self-worth by the time I graduated from high school, because I did get a lot of recognition for who I became as a runner and as a student. And prior to becoming a runner, I wasn't getting any positive attention for it either. I was just getting negative attention. And so I believed some of the adulation where, people were trying to tell me I was really good at math, so people were telling me to be an engineer or you should be a lawyer, or you should go into politics. So I mean, I just believed all of that. And then I spent some time in the developing world, and that just kind of also flipped things on its head. And then I started a family young and needed health insurance. And so if I'm being honest, like that's what ultimately led to me going into education was, okay, I have a bachelor's degree in anthropology. What else can I do with it right now other than become a teacher? And at the same time, so I had a son, and his mom was very, she had a lot of health trouble, and so we needed really good health care, and I was still in the US. And so that's ultimately why I ended up teaching. We moved back to my hometown, in large part so my mom could help out with my son and with my my ex-wife, and so that I could have health care, because our health bills exceeded my income every single year. But with insurance as a public employee, it was all covered, which is the norm in Canada, but that's not the norm in the US. And so that's ultimately why I ended up there. But it was also time, in terms of the time frame. My high school coach, who was also just an extraordinary man and mentor to me, he was stepping down, and he contacted me and asked if I would be interested in going back and like taking over the cross country program that he had been coaching for 30 years. And I had been doing some coaching while as a university student, and had kind of begun coaching myself and things. And so it was like, I was curious about learning that side of things. So it was almost like I wanted to be able to do both, and moving back to rural Oregon gave me the opportunity to teach, to coach, and to pursue my own running, and also to have the support of my family.
And so that was the birth of Jacob as a running coach as well. So you know what? A lot of listeners listened to the Renegade podcast. I would say they probably never done a trail race before. They're probably mid-pack runners, back of the pack runners, just starting to run. From your coaching experience, Jacob, like what's the biggest myth that you see new runners and maybe mid-pack runners just flat out getting wrong? Where are they getting themselves into trouble?
I would say probably two things. I think most runners are like I was, where they try to push every single run. Like they think that you need to redline every single, or that you need to be like out of breath, or that you need to run to exhaustion every single run. And so you're never fully recovering. You're also never fully like gaining the benefits that you need by training in the different systems. And I think the other is being afraid of competition or events. And I would say it's in large part because I think people actually think that they are competitive and that they have to like, have this, diehard like energy about them. And, it's like this intense competitive nature. And the reality is like, when I view running and when I view competitions, I just view them as like a celebration of the hard work that you've put in, a date to put on the calendar to work towards, to give you something like motivation to put in the hard work. And then you get to celebrate it with other people who are also there, who also probably got banged up along the way and didn't follow the plan perfectly. You get to be there and you get to just celebrate like that we get to move, whether it's on roads or on track or trail or whatever. It's just like the fact that we get to do this, like it's such a privilege that we get to, that we're alive and that we can breathe and that we can move. And so, I mean, most of the running I do almost exclusively by myself or just with my dog and whatever creatures she brings back or tries to catch and bring back to me. But running races is an opportunity to like actually be with other like-minded people. I think especially in an online world, like as much as there can be like these fabricated silos or communities that we may belong to, I genuinely feel like there's an authentic unifying experience at running events. Like I don't feel like a sense, like any bit of competitive nature in me at all when I'm at running events. It's all just love. And people may come from different political, parties. They may come from different socioeconomic, classes or whatever. And somehow, like, running just strips that all down. Even if someone shows up in designer running clothes and the other person shows up in thrifted running clothes, they're all sweaty and look the same at the end anyway, like it doesn't matter. And or people are discarding them on the run anyway. So it's like, you all show up and you're just a mess at the finish line, and you hug and you meet each other, and often you share, experiences. You share, like, depending on how long the race is, you may be with the same person for a very long time, and you get to know people really well, out on the trail. So I would say many of my best friends I've met, like, in races, and had we not had the opportunity to, like, had we not both signed up for those races, we would have both never met, but I would have never been exposed to those worldviews, or, like, just, I wouldn't have been challenged, not just physically, but like mentally or ethically or morally or politically, to just think differently because someone brings up a different point. And that, I have running to thank for that.
Hey Renegades, I am thrilled to share that I've signed up for coaching with Jason Fitzgerald from Strength Running. Jason is a USATF certified running coach, a 239 marathoner, and founder of Strength Running. He started Strength Running in 2010 after overcoming his own serious injuries that nearly ended his running. That experience helped him crack the code on smart training, injury prevention, and consistent progress. Since then, he's coached tens of thousands of runners through plans, programs, and personalized guidance while hosting the popular Strength Running podcast. I'm excited and confident that Jason's expertise will help me hit my big running goals, stronger, healthier, faster than ever. If you're a runner chasing your own breakthroughs, he can help you too. Check out more at strengthrunning.com and follow his podcast. I'm excited to share my journey with Jason with you, all the Renegades, so stay tuned. It's something that's so true. When you head to a trail event or even a road event, I promise you, I ran Big Sur this year. There's 5,000 runners in the Big Sur starting block area. Nobody was talking politics. Everyone was worried about how's those hills going to be, and I hope I just get a good, honest effort out there, and I'm trying for a PB. It just gives you like a different side, like the better side of the human. Rather, when you get out in nature and you get disconnected from the machines that just feed us what we think we need to see on Instagram and Twitter, all that fun stuff. Yeah, I love that community, and I get the sense, Jacob, like, you're very soft spoken. I would say that what you alluded to, of like the joy of being there for a race, I think that's just innate who you are. But I'm going to dig a little bit deeper here. So you mentioned that your younger brother tried to beat you in the one race when you were first starting off, and that's drove you to go faster. Have you had some epic races with your family and your siblings and your brothers? How did the race go, or how did it go? Because it's got to be hard because they know everything about you, right? Like if you're racing a brother or your sister, they know everything about you. They know your weakness, they know your strength. Well, you have a couple stories or two that you can share with us?
And I'm sure if, you mentioned earlier about the trash talking in tennis. So the trash talking between the siblings must be, on a whole new level during the race, right?
Yeah. So I'll start with my parents. I don't think you could find two different people, like, and somehow, and this isn't meant to be a bragging, but like somehow what they created were six kids that are very driven. So I do think it's a nature nurture thing. Both my parents are extremely intense, but like almost on opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of like their intensity. One of them is like an abstract artist. The other is like a calligrapher, where everything is like, there has to be symmetry and lines, and and the other is like Jackson Pollock kind of stuff. And and out of that came six very intense kids who, yeah, I mean, obviously there's some genetics that we inherited from them that can't be argued. But I do think there was a lot of, just that work ethic and just discipline and consistency that came into it, but also like an extreme sense of play, like that work hard, play hard, and also just like yeah, I'm gonna get choked up. My siblings are like my absolute best friends, and they're extremely loyal, and they're exactly what I want my kids to have in their siblings, and they're what I think the world hopes, everyone would have in their siblings. Like, I have incredible siblings who also happen to be freakishly good athletes and musicians and artists and all the rest. So like, I am by far the least like talented athlete in my family, like no questions asked. And every one of them would tell you that. And yet my brother, who is my next youngest brother, who also identifies as a runner, Tommy, or Rivs is what people call him. His middle name is Rivers, and so he started going by his middle name in college cross country because we had another Tommy on the team, so people just started calling him Rivs then. So he was a better runner from me from the time he was in grade 5 and I was in grade 8, and it wasn't until we started racing for money to feed our families that he would ever allow himself to beat me. Like, he knew that it mattered that much to me, and that's all I had. Like, he has the voice of an angel. He's ripped. He's got this beautiful, like, godly beard, and so like he was just like, I'll give him this one thing. Jake can be a runner. But one time, so we got to be teammates in high school, and then I think it was the last year, maybe 2 years of university, we got to be teammates and on a really small, really bad team in Hawaii. It was a Division II school, and it was so bad that they gave us scholarships to run on it, and we weren't that. So we got to paid to run in
take what you can, though.
Yeah.
I was like, to be wonderful.
Everyone else knows about this secret. Like, you're paying us to live in Hawaii to run slow. All right, cool, thank you. So again, I was just like the type A brother. So we only had a cross country team. We didn't have a track team. So most of our cross country team would just like take the winter off. And I just, from the time I was in high school, was like, I don't take the winter off. Everyone else would gain weight. They'd surf. They'd, get jobs and do other things. My brother was one of those people. He'd surf. He'd skateboard. He looked, at the time, neither of us had beards, but he's just always been like a lot thicker than I am. So like, he looked like Kelly Slater, and we're on North Shore. Yes. Or like Jack Johnson, like he got a lot of attention. And so and again, he could play guitar and sing. So, and I was just this, I'm a runner. And so during the winter, our coach, we weren't allowed to meet formally, like because of NCAA rules, because we weren't technically a track team. So we could only meet periodically. So our coach would have like time trials, just like as fitness checks, like, hey, are you going to be eligible for your scholarship next year? We may not be able to meet formally, but I do expect you guys to run. And we showed up, and we had like this 5K loop that we would do on the roads, on the North Shore of Oahu. And Tommy rolled up literally like 30 seconds before the start, barefoot on a longboard. Just like, I don't think he slept that night, or if he did, he slept on a beach playing his guitar for people, and rolls up, puts his shoes on, and I'm leading the whole thing. I'm on PR pace. I think we're going to go under 15 minutes, and I'd never run under 15 minutes for 5K. And he catches me with like 800 meters to go, and he starts quoting, like, my brother. One of his other many gifts is that he's like a mnemonics or an audio savant. So like, he can, if he hears something once, like a song, a movie line, he can quote every movie he's ever watched, and he can sing after hearing a song. So anyway, he starts quoting Camelot, and so he does his best, Sean Connery voice, like, what I do now, I do for Camelot. Never surrender. I command you to fight for your lives. And he's just like passing me, and I'm like busting up, just like, never run faster in my life, and I like can't stop laughing, and he just drops me, and so that's like technically like beat me, but it wasn't in a race. He wouldn't publicly shame me like that. He just wanted to like show me how unbothered he was and how little he cared about it, and he could still just roll up. No warm up other than longboarding to the start, and I think we both went under 15 minutes that day. So, yeah,
Wild.
yeah,
That's wild. I don't think I've ever heard of anyone push into a PR citing the Camelot with Sean Connery. I love it.
No, it was fun, and that's how it would always go. Like my baby brother, I feel bad for my younger siblings. Like they got dragged to our cross country meets, and so my youngest brother, he ran like an all comers meet, like as the community run after one of our cross country races. So he's like my youngest son's age at the time, and so he's like 8 years old, and he's stuck there, and my brother's going to do it as a cool down, and so my brother's wearing like cargo pants. My baby brother's wearing cargo pants and holding him up, but my brother's running shirtless, so he takes his shirt off, and this 8-year-old just goes and jogs this 18-minute 5K like with his older brother, like which is supposed to be like a cool down. And this youngest brother like does not identify as a runner. He's like, I'm a musician, like that. The last thing I'm going to do is like be like you guys, because you just run. And he's like by far the best runner in our family. And so like when I go home and visit and see him, like we go for runs, and he usually drops me, like, or I'm like gasping for air every time we go running, but in his mind he's just like, oh, I just do this like on my lunch break, this is just what I do. And his work has nothing to do with sport or he's just a good runner, but also doesn't know, like he hasn't raced enough to even know what his pace is or anything like that. He's just like, yeah, you just hammer every time. So, and it's crazy. It's like anytime I see my siblings, we're usually able to connect by going on a run, and more often than not, I'm the least fit. I'm the one like gasping for air.
Maybe this leads into why Jacob went to the ultra event, because he's like, well, I'll just run longer than everybody else, because you might be faster than me in those shorter distances, but I'll get you on the 50 milers and those 50Ks.
I think that's fair. I think my brother, so Tommy started running roads faster than I could run roads. And so I was like, all right, I'm not racing you on the roads anymore. I think this was after Boston. We went and did, maybe not. Yeah. I beat him at his first 50 miler, and at the time he was like training for tries but doing more road stuff. So I knew he was better at the shorter stuff, but I was like, I think I could beat you at 50 miles, like mostly just because you experience things in your body that you've never felt before. And so that scares you when your hips are hurting for hours on end. you feel like something's going to snap, And, so yeah, that is probably ultimately why I did move on to longer distances, if I'm being honest.
Well, when you mentioned about running Boston with Tommy, I made us think back. We had Michelle and Kim Krasnowski on a few months back, and the two Canadian twin sisters who are amazing marathoners, and they ran Boston together, but they had a code, and they said, like, if it was your day, they just looked at each other and said something, and then one took off. So I think it was, maybe I'm going to, Kim or Michelle, yeah, I'll make it this wrong. I think it was Michelle that in 2024 was the first Canadian female finisher of the Boston Marathon. And when they were running together, one just looked at the other one and said, go, like, it's your day. When you were running with your brother and you're competing against each other, did you run with each other? And then you knew when one was having a good day, bad day, that you would signal or like let off that brotherly love to say, you know what, you can go. Don't worry about hanging out with me.
Or maybe there's another movie quote that you would have to deliver. That one.
Another movie quote.
Yeah. Honestly, like that was probably the best race my brother ever ran on the roads. And it was just so cool to like be there and to witness it. But even more so, like it was still typically the way that he always treated me deferentially and stuff like that. Like I actually hadn't even run a marathon in a long time. Like I got in kind of through the back door. because of, I think, my Calgary marathon times, even though they were 50Ks, they converted to like qualifying times. And then I had run like in the 220s before. And so, but I was able to get in like the second heat, and he was in the elite heat. He had run 218, I think 2 months in a row prior to Boston. And that was a huge jump. Like he'd run like a 230 something. And then all of a sudden he just like dropped 10 minutes after training for a few years. And so I didn't think we'd be together, but he was given the ability to have a water bottle at the aid stations, and so the elite started, and then our heat started, and I sprinted to catch him, and he actually slowed down to let me catch him, and then we ran together, and he, like the first few aid stations, he would hand me his water bottle first, and then hand it back to him. And he's a good climber, and so like, and I'm a better descender, and so we got to some hills fairly early on, not like the Newton Hills, but we got to some hills, and he was feeling good, and he's like, he looked to me and he's like, hey, I'm just gonna stride up the hill, but I'm sure you'll catch me on the other side, which is historically how it's always gone. Like, he's dropped me on up hills, I've caught him on downhills, and so that's what we thought was going to happen, and he just disappeared, and he beat me by 10 minutes that day, or close to that. And yeah, it was wild. Like, he ran out of his head, and we shared a hotel room, and he literally had submitted his doctorate thesis like that the night before, like on Sunday night. And so he was on his phone, like trying to edit the last few of the manuscript, and then just went and did that, and didn't even make a big deal about it. He was just like so complimentary and so like proud of me, and like I had to like pull it out of him, like how he did, and like other people had to come and tell me how he did, because he was just waiting there with a blanket for me at the finish line and just like ready to hug me. And I think that might have actually been the first time in a race that he like outright beat. Like, that was the time, like, where it was like, all right, I'm going to take the baton now. I'm going to stop like living below my potential just so you look good. I'm going to actually like shine. And it was so cool to see. Like,
that's awesome.
It was really cool.
Awesome. And the fact that he would have a blanket for you at the finish line, though, just being like, here you go, brother. Like, I'm ready to, pull you in here. That is just amazing, right?
Yeah, I mean, and he was like,
a beer for you too.
Come and sit with me in the elite tent, and they're going to take care of us here. And I was like, I was not going to be invited to any of that stuff. I was not one of them, and but he just snuck me in. Like, this is my agent. This is my big brother.
That's wicked. So we've talked about family. We've talked about all the hard work that you've put in, from the early days of, just running that 3 kilometers nonstop, and what it took to get you to that point in time. We've talked about nature and your surroundings and how much you enjoy it. I'm on your 5 Peaks website right now, and I just need to read the first paragraph that I see here. So spend some time in nature with us. 5 Peaks events are more than trail races. They're special celebrations of nature, of the hard work we put into our training, of strength, and of family in the community. I was scrolling through this and, seeing that there's a portion of there where each of these races have a kids element to it where they can run for free. It's really truly is a family affair. So tell us how you've, immersed yourself in 5 Peaks, and also share with us too what we have going on. There's probably too many races to list right now, and we'll direct all of our
across Canada.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I mean. There's just I'm just in awe of all this work that goes into coordinating all of this. But how do you find the time to do this, and how do you? I guess I can see the love, and I can see how it pours out of you, and how this is really a passion. So just again, tell us how this started with you, or your involvement started, and go from there, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I said, I I was just like helping behind the scenes, and I was just also like helping with the transition. Like um it was working with the previous owner um to help it become like a viable business, so to speak. Like
Mhm.
um and I have zero business experience. Like but I had started races mostly for fundraising efforts, like to fund my cross country teams that I coached, or my track teams and things. And so I had some experience where it was just like, anything above breaking even is a good thing. And so we just kind of started from there, and then also just sort of said like, okay, what's the baseline? Like what's the minimum of where we have to get to with um in order to just make these races sustainable, and then just try try and make a little bit more so that we can keep investing and keeping this going. And so I know we were talking about family, and so the fact that I shifted gears into business mode, but that's kind of where it went, was like, okay, this is what we like. This is a beautiful thing. This is something that I want to continue to experience, and this is something I want others to be able to experience. But like, it's not going to continue to happen if we don't like charge enough, or like if we don't have enough people at the events to just cover the the flat, like the hard costs. And so that was kind of where it started, was just like, okay, what is it going to take to make this like a viable, sustainable series? And so what we did was um Fight Peaks has kind of run the gamut from like, we've had races literally from coast to coast, like on the Atlantic and on the Pacific, and then everywhere in between, including some of the provinces in the prairies, where we no longer have any races. And it was in part because it was like I said, there's this break even point where it's like, we need a certain number of people paying a certain number amount just to be able to like make the events work, and to pay to have storage and equipment in each of those areas, and ship things to and from the places. And so we actually, we're in the process of kind of dialing things back, and just like, okay, we have 5 races in the lower mainland of BC, like the Vancouver area. We have 5 races in the GTA. We have 5 races in the greater Edmonton area, and 5 races in the greater Calgary area. A few years ago, we had 10 races in the GTA, and we realized that was actually like, as much as there is demand, it's also a super saturated market, and we weren't actually hitting the break even point at any of those races. So we were like, okay, we've got to consolidate it and just have 5. And even if that means some people have to travel further, or they go to another event that's closer to them, we're just gonna have to do that. So but it's in large part so that when people get there on race day, they don't feel like a customer. They actually feel like they're a member of the community, and they do get the attention that they need. And it can be something that's sustainable. Like I've got 4 kids. Like it's not cheap to do anything with 4 kids. It's not cheap to go to the movies. It's not cheap to like, go to a restaurant. It's not cheap to go do a family activity like that. And so it's like, how can we do this in a way that's actually cost effective for a family to do? And that's kind of where we start. And also like, how can it be fun and meaningful for kids without it costing them or their parents or us a ton of money either? Like, how can it's like I had this conversation with my Toronto race directors actually today. Like, how can we make sure that kids are learning that there is intrinsic value in running, and that you don't necessarily have to get a medal every single time you run? Like you just don't. Like, and it's not just a cost thing. It's like, do we really need to give kids gold stars, or any human a gold star, for like waking up every day? Like, because if that's not the incentive, it's like, they'll actually experience what most of us feel on a daily basis when we finish a run. Like, I feel so much more grounded. My head is so much clearer. Like,
Yeah.
that was probably the best part of my day. Like, most days, that's it. It's like, so why does it have to be anything more than that? And then, if people do want more than that, it's like, we can charge a little bit more for that, but it's like, it doesn't have to be this all inclusive experience. Like, if you want to go to an all-inclusive and, you know, have everything taken care of, that's cool. But like our races are meant to be entry level. They're meant to be like as few barriers as possible, like so that anyone can afford to do it, and anyone of any age and any ability. We have hiking groups, so people who've never even run a race and may never run a race again, or maybe people who once ran really fast and can no longer run a race, are still welcome, and they can still show up, and feel celebrated and supported. And I mean, my dad, who I would say wouldn't identify as a runner, he's always been a very mobile person though. Like he loves to walk, and he had a stroke last summer, and probably the hardest thing for him was like, as much as I hate wearables and as much as I refuse to like have all my data tracked and I have all my notifications turned off on everything, he has the mileage tracker in his phone, which is super inaccurate. He's not wearing a watch or anything like that, but like his goal every single day was like, I want to walk over 8K every single day. And it didn't matter if that meant I'm walking to the grocery store and I'm going to walk laps up and down the grocery store, then I'm going to walk home, and then he had a stroke, and he was in rehab for like 2 weeks, just like learning to learning to walk with a what's it called? A walker and stuff like that. And he's now back out there like mowing the lawn and stuff like that. And so like, I want my dad to feel welcome at our races, and like that he can come and not just see his grandkids, but also like feel like I'm just as much a part of this community as anyone else. And not just because he's my dad, but because, you know, he still has not only a reason to live, but like that makes him feel alive, like to be able to move. And that's what I want Five Peaks to be, for as many people as possible for as long as possible.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And that's a great mission. It's a great mission. And I believe I've done 3 Five Peaks races over the years. I love them. And I know I always loved the one at Crawford Lake, Ontario. What I loved about that one, I've always loved Crawford Lake because of the Iroquois village. It's got the longhouses, and I could always like close my eyes and I try to think back, like, you know, 1,000 years ago, what did people like live like? Like, what did they do? And you can kind of see the fort or their village reconstructed, and you run around the most scenic area. And coming from Southern Ontario, we don't have many great trails like that. I always just love that feeling. And you're right, like the connection. That's what we've always appreciated about the trail running, is it's not as stressy. Like road running can be very stressy, really stressful. Trail running's more relaxed, more fun. You're there for a great time. And there's some great trail runners like yourself who've had a great career. I was going to ask you, Jacob, I know you're busy raising family and race directing. Is racing on your in your sights in 26, 27? Like what's got you excited? What are you thinking about for yourself?
I currently don't have any like competitive ambitions for myself. That may change. Most days it honestly is just like, okay, how can I fit a run in, and how can I get the dog out for a run? And she's a young puppy, and like if she would be so happy if she could run at least 20K a day. And I'm surprised she's not like, you know, pawing. Like when we were messaging back and forth, I was out on a run and trying to get back, but it was like, I know I need to get her as tired as possible before she's going to be.
Oh yes, those puppies.
Yeah. But that's honestly like reinvigorated like my love for running. It's like taught me like to love running at the most basic level. And also with my kids, like just, you know, they'll get on their mountain bikes, and we can get onto some trails fairly quickly from here. And I just love that piece. I wouldn't say I have a bucket list even. Like I genuinely feel like immense gratitude, and like I cannot believe how lucky I've been, and how how kind running has been to me. Like it has given me so much more than I could have ever wished for. Like even when I dreamed of being, you know, in the NBA or getting a college scholarship or something like that. Like the fact that I got paid to run, I got paid to, I got some of my, you know, university paid for to run. I'm able to like live by putting on races and by coaching and things like that. Like that's never in my wildest dreams would I have ever thought that this would be a reality. Like even now, it's just kind of like, what am I doing? This is crazy that this is my life. And so like as far as racing goes, like I don't want to be greedy. I genuinely feel like I accomplished way more than I ever thought I would have, and that's not to brag. It's just like it truly has exceeded my expectations. I'd say running and my kids have exceeded my expectations. Like there's been plenty of disappointment in my life, but like those two things have like been like given me much more than I could have possibly ever asked for or expected or that I've given in return. Maybe, you know, if I ever figure out that balance that my parents tried really hard to instill in me, and if I ever get healthy again and like feel good running regularly, I think I might want to go back to like the Javelina 100 or something like that. And I really don't have any interest in running 100 miles ever again, or doing anything that requires you to like not sleep in your own bed for ever. like
Yes.
sleep. But I'd probably do 100K, and I think I could do like my current PR in the 100K is the first 100K of the Javelina 100 mile. And so like I'd like to actually go and just do a all out 100K. And that's honestly probably the only race I would like to ever do again. Maybe Boston or maybe Comrades or something like that. But like there are very few races that like, and that sounds super crazy that it's like my job to put on events and try and encourage people to come out. But like there just aren't a whole lot of that are out there for me that I'm like, this is calling my name. Like
Right.
in this lifetime, I want to do this or that. I'm just really grateful at this point. So. And also still really
you've
busy.
Accomplished a lot. Well, that's it. You've accomplished a lot, and that's such a wonderful thing. So I guess I know that we could continue talking. I feel forever. There's so much about you that we could unravel. Perhaps we need to have a part 2, a part 3, and continue to check in on you over time. But I know that you look for volunteers to support your events. So there's information on your website if anyone's looking to volunteer to help out. Where else can people find information on you? And there's www.5peaks.com, and find you on socials. Are you is that where you'd like to direct people to as well?
Yeah, and I appreciate that. 5peaks.com is where you can find out all the information for all the events. And like I said, about 20 of them are from the 1K kids up to about a half marathon distance. So very much intro to trail running. And then we do have a few outliers that are a little longer and maybe a little bit more technical, that go up to 50K. I'm on, so 5peaks.com, and then like at 5 Peaks Run on Instagram, 5 Peaks Trail Running on Facebook. And then someday I'll be better at business. So I should say, you know, you can find me or 5 Peaks at LinkedIn or something like that, you know, and no, I really do think that if there is a business out there that wants like a solid distribution network, like, and I'm not just saying this, if I owned a different business, like if I owned a business with products or services that was targeted towards like active people, I would say you get a lot of bang for your buck if you partner with us, because you have access to an entire country of, you know, very loyal customer base, so to speak. I don't like to think of people like that as customers, but in terms of partnerships, all of those have the potential to add value to our participants. And so that's like, you know, if we can collaborate to offer and enhance the experience of our community, then I'm all for it. So yeah, so you can reach out to me.
That's awesome
As well. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And I see that you've had like a lot of, you have quite a few national partners that have just, helped with the cause and supported too over time. So just a shout out here. So La Sportiva, Blonix, Custom Lab, Grind, Girls Forward, Mito Canada, Run Go, Running Court, Start Line, Timing, Distance Runner, 5-1 Perspective, and Capra. So it's an awesome group right there.
Yeah. Thank you. Really appreciate you guys. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, Jacob, this was a wonderful conversation. I can't thank you enough for sharing your story. To me, what I took away is the love of you have for running that was foundational from your family, having great siblings, the passion that you are trying to bring and that you bring to the running and the trail running community. We love you for it. Thank you, brother. Thank you for being on this episode.
Appreciate it. Thank you both for
Awesome.
what you
Thank
do
you.
for the community. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
We thank you for listening to the Renegade Podcast. Each episode, we dare to practice the lost art of conversation to better understand this thing we call life and the human connection that we have with running and endurance sport. If you enjoy the Renegade Podcast, could we ask for a favor? Head on over to our YouTube and click subscribe and like our podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Your engagement helps keep the Renegade Podcast growing and going. If you have a show idea, a comment, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email, runegadepodcast@gmail.com. That's RUNEGADE podcast@gmail.com. We have a great list of guests coming up that we're looking forward to sharing another conversation with you. Head on over to our link tree, check out our sponsors, our friends of the podcast. We have great discount codes that, thanks to them, they're offering you, the Renegade listeners, to save some money on the best running gear, apparel, fuel, and nutrition. We thank you for listening. And remember, in a world of runners, be a renegade.